listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah. Gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today, once again, is Jen Peoples.
Yeah, how you doing?
Fine. Actually, it's kind of funny. Neither of us expected to be here today.
That's true, yeah.
But Matt couldn't make it, Martin couldn't make it, so here we are. Today is Sunday, May 20th. We are a live call-in public access television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We're also available through live streaming video at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback to us by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoyed this show, you should check out our related podcasts, which you can also find on the Atheist Experience website, The Nonprofits and Godless Bitches. And if you enjoyed the show today, then please come and join us for dinner afterwards, starting at around 6 at El Arroyo on 1624 West 5th Street. And we've managed to tighten up the announcements a ridiculous amount. I hope we even have callers. We have callers.
We have callers.
Okay.
Excellent.
Joe in Hayward, California.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm an atheist, although it's just recently I realized that I was, and I'm still getting used to the word. I spent 15 years in an Eastern religious cult, the Transcendental Meditation Organization.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which people think of as just a 20 minutes twice a day thing, but underneath it's a full-blown crazy, batshit crazy, financially destroying, psychologically destroying cult.
I actually didn't know that. Who's the leader?
Well, he's dead now. It's Maharishi Yogi. I have a website on it which I discuss. It's adjustability.org.
All right. I'm sure the audience can check that out. So what's on your mind?
Okay, so I spent 15 years there. Then I spun out, like a lot of people who spin out of cults, I spun into a so-called mainstream religion.
Okay.
Because I couldn't give up the idea of absolute truth.
Which one?
Hardcore Catholicism.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, yeah.
And I only spent 5 years in that, so I was doing better. And then I became a baby skeptic, and for the last 30 years I've been developing, I've been kind of in the informal grassroots anti-cult movement, like with my website about TM. And basically I called in to make two comments. One of which is now that I've kind of tuned into the atheist community, I realize that people don't realize that there's no substantive difference between what we call mainstream religions and cults.
I think there's some awareness of it. I mean, and there's a sliding scale of seriousness, I think. It depends on what group you're in.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's kind of like autism, which is a spectrum disorder. It can be either mild or serious. And religion, cults are basically, as you said, on the sliding scale. And they, I think it's a disservice to think of religion, mainstream religion, as being in some way different substantively than cults. If you understand like the psychology of cult recruitment, then it's the identical psychology and techniques that are used in conversion and converting somebody into a religion.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think that, if we talk about the absurdity of some of the beliefs, I think you're right. There's not really that much separating what we'd call cults and mainstream religion. But I do think in terms of the behaviors they use to keep people in the flock, that can, like you said, that varies quite a bit. And there are some religions that I think, qualifies as religions. They have rituals, they have dogma and doctrine or whatever. But I wouldn't call them cults. Versus others that I definitely think are cults.
Well, see, it depends on the term. Like, if you define cult and versus religion in terms of ethics, then there's a difference.
Well, my understanding of cults is that there are some specific things that makes them cults, not religions, beyond the obvious that if a cult gets big enough, then it's a religion. But, but I mean, in specific terms, some of the things that define cults are that they sort of hide their true, they sort of recruit by disguising what their true beliefs are. Like, for instance, Scientologists do not talk about Xenu until you're right. Deep into it. And that's one of the things.
I actually discussed that on my site. The thing is, that's an arbitrary distinction.
Okay.
The anti-cult movement does that because they want people who spin out of cults into mainstream religions to feel welcome, to go, and so they make this distinction. But see, what I'm focusing on is actually the psychology of it. The psychology of conversion is identical.
You mean like love bombing, for instance?
Yeah. Well, all cults and all religions convert by inducing what psychologists call a dissociative experience, in which people's suggestibility is heightened and their critical thinking is sometimes completely shut off. And so, like the Mormons do this, they'll come to the door and they'll start talking about the burning in the bosom that they had. And they suggest that a person pray with them to see if they get a burning in the bosom. And the prayer experience is actually dissociative. Colloquially, a dissociation is called trance. And then a lot of people, with heightened suggestibility, and especially if they kind of really want a spiritual experience, they'll have one. And because suggestibility is heightened, they'll have the experience, and because critical thinking is often completely suspended for some people in a dissociative state, then
right. But if I could just play devil's advocate for a second, wouldn't some groups say that also applies to like attending a rock concert?
Well, actually, dissociation and trance are completely normal. For example,
so it's not.
A lot of people listening to the show right now, as with any TV show, they've lost awareness of the room around them, and they've even lost awareness of themselves.
So we are a cult. My mother-in-law will be glad to know.
And that's a completely normal experience, and people go into dissociative states many times a day. The difference is when somebody exploits it.
Well, and I think I understand what you're saying, because I think I've talked a couple of times on the show about if anybody's ever watched Benny Hinn on TV, you see the intro of his show, you see these people standing there and there's soft music playing and they're swaying rhythmically, and then he comes on and he's speaking in a very soothing tone of voice, and it's almost hypnotic. And what they don't know is that music and that swaying has been going on for a long time before the opening credits of the show. And so these people, they probably are in this mild dissociative state, and then he comes in and he presents, this information to people who are in a very highly suggestible state. And so I understand what you're saying, and I think that you could take that little script and apply it to almost any religious ceremony that goes on almost anywhere.
That's exactly my point, Jen. That if you look anywhere, like even like the rhythmic, any kind of, you got to learn in his prayer meetings. There's the rhythmic speaking of the preacher, and the spiritual cadence. They have the organ music. If you go to Scientology, then the initial communications course has highly dissociative exercises. even the Amway meetings are also, I noticed that
You don't have to tell me that. I wrote a big web page on Amway as a cult.
That's basically a revival meeting. I mean, that's highly dissociative because I've been to a couple before I figured out what the symptoms were.
Right. I'm just saying that you kind of can't necessarily paint with too broad a brush, because while a lot of religious meetings have like particular symptoms of a cult, I mean, would you say that like Unitarian Universalist meetings are also cultish?
I don't know that a Universalist Unitarian meeting induces a dissociative state.
Right. So I mean, there's a scale, like I was saying, from Universalist Unitarian meetings to like hardcore fundamentalists.
Yeah.
That's what I think we're in violent agreement.
Okay.
My point is that a lot of people think there's a hard line between cults and religion.
Yeah, there's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're in violent agreement about that.
Okay.
That basically my point is to look at is to understand the psychology of conversion, I guess.
Right.
And the second point I wanted to make is atheists who haven't been true believers often think that true believership is a matter of just complete intellectual stupidity. But it's really a matter of having your entire worldview. You're basically having been put into an alternate reality by the psychology of conversion, to where you still remain completely intelligent, or as intelligent as you were. It's just your intelligence is applied to rationalizing your new worldview.
Right.
And I think atheists have trouble understanding that, and they just think true believers are just stupid.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's a little of both, really, and I certainly am always quick to correct people who just say that religious people are just idiots. I never think they are.
Yeah, I don't think so. Some of them are, but that's not universally true. And in fact, I've got a lot of family members who are believers, and they're quite intelligent. I just think that they haven't properly applied skepticism to their religious beliefs.
Well, the thing is, once you become a true believer, the more intelligent you are, the more stuck you are, because you're better at rationalizing your beliefs.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah. There's actually a book. There's a book that Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson wrote, a book called "Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me," and it's basically about how we rationalize beliefs.
Oh, okay. What is that again? I'll look at the tape. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. The name of the book is "Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me."
Okay. Great.
So,
okay. Anyway, those are the comments I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Next we have John in Chicago. Oh, whoops. I don't think I hung up properly. Hold on.
Okay.
Too many buttons. John in Chicago, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So what do you got for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to just get a little understanding, a little better understanding, I guess, on why you choose not to believe in a creator or a supernatural force or whatever you want to call God.
Well, I don't choose not to believe. I don't believe.
Yeah, I think we know you don't believe, but I just was kind of confused on why exactly that is.
Well, why would you?
Yeah.
I mean, if I tell you, you know, that I've got $1 million in a hidden bank account somewhere that is yours if you just send me a token offering, would you believe me?
Well, it depends on if you could show evidence that you have it.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
That's kind of the point, then.
Yeah, I just, you know, I happen to believe that there's, you know, tons of evidence out
Such
there.
as?
Yeah.
And I guess the evidence that we have is really up to interpretation. So I just kind of wonder how could you look at some of the statements in nature and just say that it was random.
You wouldn't be that careless. You wouldn't be that careless about my bank account, would you? I mean, you know, if you're going to commit to doing something financial that's kind of risky, you wouldn't rely on evidence that's just sort of fuzzy and open to interpretation. You'd want to see, like, you know, detailed statements, some kind of, you know, very specific kinds of evidence that that are beyond reasonable doubt.
Correct.
So I mean, when it comes to making massive assumptions about the nature of the universe, that's, you know, you kind of want to apply the same level of rigor, which is what science is about when you come right down to it.
Right, I agree. So how could you look at something like DNA and assume that it was a random event?
Well, where does the God come in?
Like, how could you?
Like, how could you look at something like DNA and assume that something had to create it?
Well, how could something that complex and intricate and delicate come about by chance?
Is your God complex?
Well, the God that I would assume that created DNA has to be extremely
something
intelligence.
So something must have created that God, right?
Possibly. I mean.
So you believe in an infinite.
Creators.
You actually believe. You actually believe in an infinite chain of creators.
Not necessarily, but define infinite in a finite universe.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, how could you really put a label on what's infinite when we can't observe what's outside of this universe? That, you know, infinity beyond our observation could be completely different. You see what I mean?
So you don't even know basic things about the God that you're coming up with, like how many there are. I mean, which is a pretty straightforward fact when you come right down to it. But but you're willing to just make it up and plug it in order. Stop interrupting me. You're willing to just basically make it up and plug it in to explain anything that you don't understand, even though this thing that you're coming up with must be much more complicated than the thing that it creates.
No, I think we have a pretty good understanding of physics and how...
Yeah, we do, but we have no indication that there's a God.
Well, we have indicators. Like,
such as?
If you look at DNA, for example, how could something, a system
I feel
such
like
as
we've
DNA
been here before.
work without having been created with an intelligence behind it that says, look, this is what it's made to do? How could something like that come about randomly in
Who said it's random? Okay, but besides that, do you know what the argument you're advancing is called?
What's that?
It's called the argument from ignorance. It means I don't know how this could have happened, therefore God.
No, I think we have an idea. If we're attempting to create DNA in a laboratory and we can understand key points of how it functions and we're attempting to do it ourselves, I mean, they still haven't been able to do it in the laboratory, but if they did, wouldn't it prove that, okay, an intelligence had to have designed that? It couldn't have just came about through random processes?
Are you familiar with the Craig Venter Institute?
The what?
The Craig Venter Institute.
What is that? No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, you might want to look that up. They've actually created synthetic DNA, and they've inserted it into living organisms.
Right, that's my point. It took an intelligence to do that.
So let me ask you something. Okay,
it did not take a God to do that.
Humans grow plants. Does that mean that all plants are grown by people growing them? I mean, do you accept that sometimes humans replicate things that after they observe them in nature?
Right, but where did nature come from? I'm assuming that if you don't believe that it was created, that it came about.
Right. So you think that all plants have to be grown by farmers all the time?
All plants?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you're going with this logic.
Were here when we got here.
What?
There were already plants here.
Yeah, and there was already DNA here too.
Right.
Sometimes stuff just happens in the wild without a creator.
That we were created by something that understands how DNA works. It works like a system.
No. Do you know anything about abiogenesis?
I know a little bit.
Okay. I think you need to know a little bit more, because there's actually some pretty cool experiments going on right now about how life could have originated on its own. And the cool thing about those experiments is that you don't have to show that this is exactly how it happened, because we don't know. We probably will never know. What the experiments can demonstrate is that this is how it could have happened.
Right.
Okay? And if we know how it could have happened, then there's no more excuse for invoking a God, because we've demonstrated that's not required.
If we know how it could have happened or how it did happen.
How it could have happened.
Well, we could say a lot of things could have happened a lot of different ways.
And
like they still, for example.
Yes, I can say that the purple unicorn created the universe, but I have no evidence of that.
Right. Making stuff up is not a way to answer questions that you don't know the answer to. Because, if you're just allowed to invent like magic genies and whatnot, that can explain anything, but you have to actually have specific evidence for the thing that you're trying to come up with. It's not enough to just say, well, I can imagine something that could explain it, and then that lets you off the hook for actually finding that thing.
Well, it's not that. I think, with all due respect, it's just comparing the two interpretations of it. I think.
Well, do you have any positive evidence for a God besides just saying I can't think of what else could have done it?
Well, look at all the different so-called holy books.
Yeah, they're all very, very
different texts that from ancient people who clearly knew more than we do about the world and the universe.
Ancient people knew more than we do. There's like a Native American legend that said that God created people by baking cookies, and that some of them came out too dark and he threw them into Africa, and some of them came out too white and they came out and he threw them into Europe. I swear, you can look this up. And then the last batch was perfect, and that was the Native Americans. These people didn't know more than we do about the origin of the universe.
But, look at the ancient civilizations around the world.
Yeah, look at them.
Where's their internet?
Yeah, exactly.
My interpretation of it is that there was a golden age at some point, and these ancients knew more than we do.
I think you know about as much about history as about science.
If there's ever been a golden age, we're probably living in it.
Well, how can you say that when the ancients built stuff that we can't build right now?
We can too.
What did they build that we can't build?
Have you been to Las Vegas lately? They got pyramids there.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas pyramids are nothing compared to the actual pyramid. Have you been there?
Have you been to like the Taj Mahal?
No, but I've been to Egypt, and that pyramid was not built by ropes and
Yeah, actually it was.
Yeah, it was.
There are ways to find out stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've asked people that have been to those sites, engineers with know-how, not just archaeologists, and they say that we couldn't have built that with stone.
No, I'm sorry. You're very, very misinformed about what people know about history.
Engineers with know-how. Where would we find one like that?
The water erosion on the Sphinx alone dates it at 9,000 BC. How can you say that people in 9,000 BC were building those monuments? If, according to evolution timeline, we were barely in civilization. We were farmers.
Dude, do you know how old the human race is supposed to be?
How old?
Do you know? Because you're saying that we were barely anything 9,000 years ago. How old do you think the human race is?
I personally don't think it's anything crazy, like, hundreds of thousands of years old.
Oh, so 2 million years would be really crazy, right? You don't know anything about evolution, so you can't be making blanket statements about what you think you do, because you are clueless here.
Yeah, you're demonstrating every time you open your mouth that you're ignorant of things.
Timelines say that man began building megalithic structures.
When they were building stuff has nothing to do with evolution.
What?
That is anthropology.
That's your interpretation of it.
By the time...
No, it's not anybody's interpretation of it. That's what the science says.
Well, what does science say about it?
About what?
About...
What's your specific question?
Well, my specific question regarding ancient civilizations
Pyramids were built around like 1500 BC, right? Give or take?
I think they were there before then.
I don't remember. I can look it up, though. That's something you can do when you don't know things.
Yeah. Yeah, you can look it up. But
I'm talking about the ones that we do know about.
Yeah.
The Mayans, the ones who
2600
had
BC.
advanced astrology and a calendar that we didn't figure out how to do till, not that long ago.
Do you think the world's ending this year?
The people who built the pyramid knew how to build a pyramid. How could you say they were farmers?
People are smart. They know things. They figure stuff out. In fact, I mean, in a weird way, it's kind of racist to say that that people in these ancient cultures were too dumb to build these things themselves.
yeah, especially since, okay, we both have kids, and when my kid was about 2 years old, he could build a pyramid. I bet yours could too, huh?
Out of blocks?
With blocks or Legos or whatever.
I don't think you guys are aware of what actually had to go on into building these.
We are. I don't
we
think
are,
you're
actually.
aware of what went on because you're attributing it to magic and you don't need to.
No, it's not magic. It's engineering. It's science.
Yes.
That's right. And they had that stuff back then.
Right. And modern architects and engineers are saying that there's no way that this.
No, they're not.
No, hey, John, do you realize that you're actually talking to two engineers?
Well, I'm a computer engineer, so that's not real engineering.
You're a computer engineer?
Yeah, but she's an actual, like, physical engineer.
Yeah, I'm an aerospace engineer, so.
Take the statue, one of the statues from ancient Egypt. There's no way they could have done those statues in such a precise manner without machine tools.
And yet they did.
No matter how many times you repeat that they can't do that, the answer is not going to become you're right.
Well, it's
well, let me ask you something.
They do it with stone tools with precision.
Let me ask you something.
Matching our present day machine tools.
Let me ask you something. If you say that they could not have done that without machine tools,
right?
What happened to the machine tools?
Perhaps they were destroyed.
By what?
Wait a minute.
How could you destroy a machine tool with stone tools?
No, I mean like a global catastrophe, perhaps.
Did Michelangelo have machine tools? I'm curious now.
Michelangelo?
Yeah. I mean, as far as I heard, he used a chisel. I mean, very low-tech approach, and that was like 2,000 years later.
Sculptures are nothing compared to the ones in Egypt. Let's be
honest.
What?
So the machine tools that they used to carve the structures in Egypt were destroyed in a global catastrophe, the same global catastrophe that did not destroy the pyramids that they built with the machine tools.
It was a very selective catastrophe.
The pyramids were built to withstand that. That's why we still have ancient structures around the world that we gaze at and don't know how they were built.
Okay.
Huge stones. I mean, look at Pumapunku or Machu Picchu. How did they do that?
By building it.
Machine tools.
I think we've gotten all the entertainment we can
rocks.
squeeze out of this call. Thank you very much for calling. Bye. Who's going to top that one?
Wow, I don't know. Let's talk to Shane.
All right. What's up, Shane?
Hi, how you guys doing?
Oh.
Fine.
We're recovering from that last call.
Bring us down,
I
Shane.
was listening. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people think the same way he does, so that is unfortunate. But my question for you guys today is, I'm actually recently out as an agnostic atheist to my close friends and family, and I have a son. He's only 5 months old right now, but I was asking for some advice about raising him in a household without religion. Now, I know some religious people would look at me and say I'm going to raise him to be an atheist, where it's on the contrary, I'm going to raise my son to be a free thinker, which I don't think a lot of religious people would understand. Now, something that has always been important in my family, and I was not raised with, I wasn't indoctrinated with a religion growing up, which I really appreciate from my mother. She allowed me to choose what I believe. However, Christmas was always something we celebrated, and, Halloween and, things like holidays like that. But I was wondering about maybe some of the things, because I know you both have kids, so how are some of the things that religious people have said to you, how have you, what have you said to them? If I don't know if you guys celebrate holidays like that.
Well, first of all, I wanted to let you know that on the Atheist Experience blog, I've written a couple of posts that specifically deal with a lot of issues for atheist parents. So I think if you just Google Atheist Experience and Raising Atheists is the title of the post. There's a part 1 and a part 2. You can find those. But specifically, you were asking about how to deal with holidays or what?
Right, because Christmas is still something that I want to celebrate, not as a Christian religion, not as a religious thing, but something, because I've always found it special because of the togetherness it brings with my family and, you know, just the act of giving. And, you know, we have taken the Christ out of Christmas, which Christians are, you know, always afraid of. But I mean, I still want to celebrate these holidays, and I don't know if you guys do.
Yeah, I do. I celebrate Christmas and
I don't.
Thanksgiving.
I mean, have you ever had any religious people talk down to you for that?
I haven't personally. I mean, we've had, you know, snide comments from time to time about, you know, if you're atheist, why do you celebrate Christmas, or something like that. But I mean, if you look at what Christmas is all about, if you took out all
capitalism.
of the exactly, if you took out all the commercialism, and just left the religious part of the holiday in there, you'd have almost nothing left.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and for us in my family, we celebrate it as just an opportunity to exchange gifts and you know, have friends and family over for a meal, and you know, it's just a fun time of year.
Yeah, you know, the Puritans hated Christmas.
Yeah.
In fact, you could be punished for celebrating it. So in a way, you could look at celebrating Christmas as an act of defiance against Christianity.
Yeah, and the Jehovah's Witnesses don't
Yeah,
celebrate
they don't
Christmas.
like it.
Yeah.
You know, you're free to get to take or leave any part of the tradition. Personally, I was raised in a you know, in a Jewish atheist environment, and so not only do I not celebrate Christmas, but I don't really have anything to miss. I mean, my parents brought me the presents, and they said, here's your present that we brought you. And I never believed in Santa Claus, and I didn't raise my son believing in Santa Claus. And, you know, we'd go to the mall once in a while and say, hey, look at the dude in the suit. But you know, and the biggest problem that caused was that you know, he was well aware that there was no Santa Claus way before most parents want their kids to know, and little kids have a big mouth. So I had to tell him, look, Ben, this is a game that parents play on their kids, and now that you know, you're in on the joke, so you're not supposed to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah, I've had parents and other people approach me with the same thing, that, you know, don't let your son tell the other kids that there's no Santa Claus yet, because, you know, we're not ready for them to know. And so I've had to have this conversation with him.
But, you know, I don't have a moral objection, really, to lying to your kids. I just decided not to do it. So if you want to tell stories about Santa Claus, be prepared for some awkward conversations later, but, you know, more power to you. You can take or leave whatever aspects of the holiday you want. You can celebrate Festivus a la Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
There's a book called Parenting Beyond Belief that you might want to check out.
Okay.
And there's also a blog on that too.
Right.
So,
well, I really appreciate you guys' time. I know you guys have a lot of callers. I'm definitely going to check out the blog and that book. And thank you so much. And I really, you know, appreciate everything that the Atheist Experience is doing for all the viewers. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
you. That was Shane.
Yeah, that was Shane.
Okay, Jim in
Uvalde.
somewhere in Texas.
Yeah, Uvalde.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Jim, are you there?
Hi, Jim.
Yes, how y'all doing?
Hi, how
Good.
are you?
Are y'all able to hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is my first time calling in. I've been listening to y'all for almost a year now, and I'll tell you what, y'all do a wonderful job. It's broadened my perspective on things. But anyways, a little background on myself. I grew up as a Mormon in the Mormon church. That's how I was brought up. And until later on in my adult life, I kind of slowly just drifted away from it. And then it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago, after I got married, that I really started to pay attention to my supposed beliefs. And slowly over time, just as I studied and did my research and all that, I discovered that what I was believing in was not rational. But my wife is a believer. Her whole entire family are believers. In fact, some of them are actually ministers. One of them studying to become a minister. And then, of course, my side of the family all being Mormons. So this has been a real difficult situation or dilemma for me. I have not come out to my side of the family. I tried talking to my dad about it a little bit. I don't know if he really fully understood what I was getting at, and the rest of them haven't told. Now my wife knows, and I think some of them in her family have an idea, but I'm just not really sure how to go about this.
How does your wife feel about it? I think that's more than anything your parents might have to say, like the most important question right now.
Well, at first it kind of bothered her, and then now she's grown to accept it and allow me to, believe how I believe, and we don't get into any religious discussions, and her family for the most part has stopped saying, having any kind of religious, conversations around me. So I think they have an idea, but I'm not real big on going through life, living a lie. I don't think I can continue to have get-togethers with my family and still sit there and pretend that I'm bowing my head, during prayers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you some of the ways I have handled that with my family, because my father was very religious. My stepmother is still very religious. My father was actually, before his death, he was actually preparing to enter the seminary to become a Methodist minister, in his 60s. And so he was very religious. And he knew that I didn't believe. And I think that he had convinced himself that I was just agnostic. His definition of agnostic and mine are not the same, or were not the same. But that was his thing, is that, I just didn't know. And we had what I would consider to be a don't ask, don't tell policy. He didn't really want to have that conversation with me, so he didn't bring it up. And I didn't bring it up either. So basically what we had decided was that our relationship was more important than a difference of beliefs, and so that we could enjoy each other's company and spend time together without that becoming like the defining thing in our relationship. And I know how much my dad enjoyed his church, and how important those beliefs were to him, but he still made me more important. He believed that I was more important than that, and I really appreciate that. And so I hope that you can get to that point with your family as well.
Well, for now, I've been treating it as strictly a need-to-know basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as close friends that I have that are fairly open-minded, I've made it known to them. But on my side of the family, I just think that it would be absolutely devastating. I don't know how it would go if I just completely came out to everyone.
Well, first of all, I've never had to come out to my family because my family is full of atheists. So it's not a problem for me, and so you can take this advice with a pound of salt if you want. For what it's worth, my observation of people who are hiding their atheism from their families and are serious about their atheism is that the families find out sooner or later. And if they don't find out from you, they still find out, and then there's that extra dimension of being uncomfortable that you've been hiding it, or in their view, lying to them.
Yeah.
So my feeling, which nobody ever follows this advice, so just know that you wouldn't be the first, but if I were in the situation, I'd probably wind up having to say it, because I don't think you're going to be satisfied living a lie about it.
Yeah.
And if the family decides to break it off with you, then you just have to say that's their loss.
Yeah.
But that's really difficult advice.
Well, I've been trying to prepare myself for that possible outcome in the event I go ahead and decide to come out. Now, as far as other people that are not family related but just friends, I've got some friends that are very religious. And in fact, it was about 2 hours ago today I called him up just to have a conversation, and he expressed a religious opinion about something we were talking about, and I feel that if someone's going to express their religious opinions or views, bring it out in the open, that's an invitation for me to say how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And he got very upset. I know we're still friends and all that, but he got very upset. And I told him, I said, well, don't get upset. You did bring up, you did express your opinions on some religious views. So if you're going to do that, expect that someone else is going to do the same thing in return, even if they're completely opposite of your views.
Right, and you're in a more difficult situation than some other people might be, just because you're sort of out on the outer reaches of Texas.
Yeah.
And you're in an area that's gonna be full of religious people, and there's no getting around that. So, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, and my family lives in, I guess in some ways I'm very fortunate because I don't live near where most of my family lives. They live in Alabama. I live in Texas. When I would go home, I'd be surrounded by very religious people. And so they're going to do some stuff that I'm not going to participate in. Like, they're going to pray over their food or whatever. They're going to pray at the drop of a hat and praise Jesus and all this stuff. And I'm not going to participate in any of that stuff. And really where it came up with my family, where where my dad first realized that I'm not a believer, was when they were inviting me. I was home visiting, and they invited me to go to church with them, and I declined. And so then my dad was asking, why didn't you want to go to church with us? And so I told him. And like I said, it came down to, he did not agree. He promised to pray for me. I refrained from telling him that I would think for him, but. That's it really was a pretty civil conversation, even though I could tell he was very unhappy. And it worked out okay because he was willing to put that aside to preserve, the peace in the family, basically. What you're going to have to do is determine whether, first of all, whether hiding who you are, what you believe, is something you're willing to do in order to preserve a relationship with your family. And whether this relationship that's based on, in part, on a lie, is worth preserving, because that's basically what you're doing. You're going to sacrifice part of yourself to preserve a relationship with people who may not do the same for you. So there's not an easy, decision to be made here. And I will tell you that this is the exact same decision that lots of gay kids have to make when they decide whether or not they're going to come out, And I can't promise you there's going to be a happy ending.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean, also, if you have no one there who can be your friend after you come out, then nothing is saying that you have to stay where you are forever.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, this is something that you're going to have to deal with your wife also.
Yeah.
And some of the question is how closely bonded your wife is to her family and yours, and how serious she is about the religion, and if that's going to be a problem in your relationship going forward. Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate y'all's time, and And you know, I'll keep listening to y'all's show, and it has really helped me out a whole lot.
Okay,
But,
I feel for you,
well,
Jim.
Yeah, and I wish we had more to offer you, but you know, we just can't promise you there's going to be, you know, a great outcome or that it's not going to be difficult for you.
And I hope sometime in the near future, you know, when I get a little more time off, hopefully I can even drop in and be involved in one of y'all's functions.
Yeah, well, feel free.
wonderful.
Yeah, we would love to have you here.
All right. Well, y'all have a good day.
All right,
All right,
thanks.
and God bless.
All right,
I mean, okay, bye. Speaking of which, if you're in the neighborhood and 15 minutes from now the show ends, you'd feel like you'd like to hang out with some atheists, come on down to El Arroyo at 5th Street in Austin. And we're going to go on to Boris of Ulm in Germany.
Hi,
guys.
Hi.
Hi, how are you all doing?
Good.
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Okay. Pretty good. It's a bit late here, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Sorry to keep you up.
Yeah, well, it's a good reason to be up.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, greetings from the city with the tallest church in the world.
Okay.
Do you think it was possible for them to build that without like advanced help from? Never mind.
I'm honestly not sure. I mean, when you look at that thing, it's pretty impressive. So I think they had some secret machines, but I haven't found them yet. I'll be looking, keeping the eyes open. Anyway, I'm an atheist. I don't go to that church except for looking how it looks, basically. But I was wondering, so the Christian apologetics are mostly nowadays oriented into this whole morality business. You can't really be good unless you have a God to tell you what good is. But actually, never videos that I saw on YouTube and elsewhere, I never saw anyone basically say that in the end, actually, it boils down to instrumental learning. There is heaven, there is hell. They're either threatening you if you're bad, or they're rewarding you if you're good.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's objective or not doesn't make any difference in the end, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only difference between that and our secular morality, in principle, is that we don't have any prizes if you are good. I mean, except for you feeling good and being rewarded with life.
Well, not just you feeling good. Not just you feeling good, but also managing to get along with everybody who has to deal with the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the golden rule and stuff. Yeah, true.
Right.
Well, and I would argue that these very rigid prescriptions about, well, if you do this, you're going to hell, and if you do this, you're going to heaven, and basically following, getting your morality out of a rule book like that, I think that actually inhibits the development of morality in people, because what we know about the development of morality, for example, in children as we grow up, is that it depends on experience and practice. And so you develop the ability to make moral judgments about something by actually doing it. You're put in a position like, okay, I can, take my friend's piece of candy and no one will know. And do I do that or do I not do that? Well, if you put that situation in front of a 2-year-old, you're going to get a very different outcome than if you put that situation in front of a 7-year-old. And the same thing as we progress, hopefully we learn that you don't take someone else's stuff. But it isn't because if you do that, you're going to get punished. It's because, you feel empathy for this other person. And so you've actually learned, why it's important not to take somebody else's stuff. And the lesson is not that you're going to hell if you do. It's that this other person will be unhappy and upset. You will have wronged someone. And so I think that the rule book that the Christians and the other theists promote actually inhibits the learning that takes place, that gets people to that point.
Yeah, and there's kind of 2 stages to learning morality. There is the sort of because I said so stage, which you kind of have to go through before the reasoning ability is there. But there's also the stage where you get somebody to understand the practical reasons for acting in an ethical way. Because if you never instill that, you know, they're going to become teenagers and you're going to be in trouble because saying because I said so is going to cause them to do the exact opposite.
Right.
And so making sure that the rationale for how you want them to behave is something that's sort of ingrained in them by the time they get that old is really important. I think what religion does is just try to prolong the because I said so stage forever.
Yeah. And I mean, I can tell you from experience, and Russell, you probably have seen the same thing. My son is 6 years old now, and the because I said so thing is already not working out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I find that he behaves much better if I give him options. Well, if you do this, then you'll have enough time to read a book before you go to bed. But if you continue to do this, which you can do, then there won't be enough time for you to read the book. So which would you prefer to do? You know, and so that's his way of deciding how he's going to manage his time and which he would prefer to do. There's no punishment in that. It's just there are trade-offs here, and so I'm teaching him how to make decisions like this. And we do this, you know, dozens of times every day.
Right. It's useful to look for teachable moments in the entertainment.
Yeah.
Like for instance, my son and I recently heard a radio show. It was This American Life, actually, which he's a big fan of, and somebody got called out for lying about something really important. And there was this really uncomfortable interview where they were asking him, why did you lie about that? Why did you put your reputation on the line? And that's the perfect kind of thing where you say, look, see, when I say don't lie, it's because you don't want to be this guy.
Yeah.
This is the most embarrassing thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, true. Okay, and I would just, well, maybe you can help me with this. I'm trying to figure out a proper response for it. As philosophy lecturers at university, basically the problem that if God is almighty, then can he make a stone that he cannot lift? So the basically logical fallacy. The solution, quote unquote, of my professor, who is an atheist but still a philosophical solution, was the problem is in definition of the word almighty. Does almighty mean you can break rules of logic, or it doesn't mean you can break rules of logic?
I guess I agree with the professor, except that I would say that almighty is pretty much meaningless. I mean, you can more or less weasel it into whatever you want, and I don't think there's that much point in arguing over the details of what almighty means without coming up with some kind of evidence that there actually is anything that has this property in the first place. So I think that the so heavy that he can't lift it argument is cute, but kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I'm actually doing a PhD. I'm doing kind of science. It's just it's purely philosophical argument. But
right.
If you would follow it, like against William Lane Craig, for instance, who likes to keep these things philosophical as well, only, so no evidence, no nothing, then, you would end up, I mean, at least I'm ending up, I don't know how to reconcile it with anybody's God in principle, which is also part of the problem, but then, it's hard telling the Christians, for instance, oh, your God is impossible, because, anything is possible in that case. Any lack of logic is still possible.
Yeah. We're running out of time, and I'd like to take at least one or two more callers, so I'm going to let you go for now. Thanks for calling, and get some sleep.
Right.
Yeah, will do. Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Bob in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
You got about 5 minutes.
Hey, first of all, I'm so happy to call over here because I feel like I'm talking to celebrities. So I do want to say that, I'm an ex-Muslim, and I recently became an atheist about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I would say.
Where are you living?
And this is really not my real name. And I am in Colorado, but it's not my real city. But I have to keep it discreet for obvious reasons because.
Can you at least tell us a country?
He's in Colorado.
No, he just said he's not really in. Oh, okay. Oh. Never mind.
But I'm not in Grand Junction.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
But you're really in Colorado.
I have to keep it discreet because basically because I left Islam. As per Islamic law, I am they say wajibul qatl, meaning obligatory. It's obligatory to kill me.
Okay.
So because I'm an apostate now. But anyway, I want to tell you guys that I used to be a staunch practicing Muslim for like 3 to 4 years with a big beard and everything. But and before that, I was just a regular Muslim guy who wasn't religious or anything. I used to party a lot and, you know, do everything what guys did in their early 20s. So, but, you know, when I got into Islam, and I saw everything, and I used to sit with the scholars and, you know, discuss like philosophy with them and everything. And the logic they used to give me, it just used to make me think that this does not make any sense, you know, like what are you talking about? But I did not dare question them. You know, I would just stay quiet. But these questions would sting me all, you know, through the years. And when I moved back to the United States, I stopped praying and everything. And, you know, I started thinking rationally and started thinking about all of these things, you know, like, and the biggest thing that really, you know, made me go out of Islam were my childhood questions. When I was a kid, my grandma would tell me the stories of Prophet Solomon and how he controlled the jinns and he flew around or whatever, you know. And even as a child, I would think, okay, if this stuff is true, why isn't it happening today? I mean, have miracles stopped happening after Prophet Muhammad or something? So, you know, these questions came back to me, and, you know, and I became an atheist, and I married, and my wife, she's an American, and she was a convert to Islam, but I came out to her, and I told her about this, and she even said, you know what, I have doubts too, and, you know, she did not agree with
any
of the
story.
Yeah.
the controlling things that how Islam controls women, like, you know, she would cover her face and everything. She did everything. We were like really strict Muslims, and now we both are atheists.
Okay. The ACA has ex-Muslims too, or so.
Yeah.
Or so I'm being told.
Yeah.
But you're in Colorado, so.
Yeah.
But that I'm glad it's worked out for you. Do you actually know people that you think would be liable to carry out a death sentence on you if you told them? I'm just curious.
Well, I do want to tell you, like, I'm originally from Pakistan, and, you know, I became a really strict Muslim over there. Even though I was living there for a while, I did not think about all of this before.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had a kind of a religious experience. You know, I suddenly changed. I woke up one morning in Ramadan, you know, our holy month, and I became a serious Muslim, and my family freaked out because my family is very liberal. They're just, as they say, cultural Muslims. They just do the main things, and they don't really care about religion. But I was friends with serious Muslims. They're very nice people, but
they want to kill you.
They might. I mean, I'm scared. If I do tell them, they might know people who are like crazy Muslims, and they might just say, okay, fine, this guy has left Islam. He's an enemy of Islam now, so we're going to like wipe him out. And I told like my best friends, and they're cool with it. But I told 2 of my cousins, they blocked me out of, you know, their lives now. I told a friend of mine, she also, you know, said that, is this why your parents gave birth to you, that you became an apostate? I mean, I laughed at that, but whatever.
Yes, but, that was exactly what they had in mind.
Yeah.
Hey, no, we're out of time.
Yeah, if nothing else, I guess it's a good way to purge the people from your life that aren't really your real friends anyway. So.
Yeah, maybe you're right, but I'm glad my best friends are still there.
All right, well, the show's over. Do you want to hang on for a couple more minutes after the break?
Sure.
All right.
Sure, I'll hang in there.
Be right back. Thanks for calling. That's our show, everyone. See you next week.